We have a bunch of different board games that we play around our house, and a lot of times people ask me where I come up with the ideas to buy these games. The truth of it is, I just buy them usually with a little bit of research and say that sounds like it might be fun, and it doesn't seem too similar to a game we already have. And so we try it out, and it usually ends up that we really like it. And so I thought I would highlight a few of these in video form and actually take a moment to explain how they're played in case you pick up any of them. It kind of helps speed the process along, in my opinion. The first game I wanted to talk about is a game we got called Jambo. It's actually published by Rio Grande Games, and it is a game made for two players, which is actually quite nice. A lot of games advertise that they are games for two players, or that they can be played by two players, but oftentimes the game just doesn't quite work out as well as you would hope. And this one is different because it actually does. It's quite a bit of fun for just two players. So Jambo actually means hello, I guess, in Swahili. These are the instructions that come with the game. They're quite simple. They're not too complicated. There's 3 or 4 pages of rules. The front page just mostly says what you can expect to find in your box. The first page here just kind of shows how you might want to set up your play area and kind of tells you what you need to do to set up the game. The second, third, and fourth page, second, third, and fourth page, there we go, explain kind of how the game is played. Looks a little confusing, and when you read the rules, it could be a little bit more clear, but generally it's a pretty easy game to learn and fun game to play. So like I stated, there are a few on this front. It shows you the types of things you get in the box. The first item, and probably the most important, being a bunch of cards. There are about 2 stacks of cards like this, so about double this amount. It gives a nice variety of lots of different things that you can do in the game, so it never seems to get too boring. There are in the game a bunch of little tokens like these. These are tea leaf, or representative of tea leaves anyway. The game is made or based on buying and selling different wares in your marketplace to be able to make money. The money pieces, obviously there's some money tokens that look like this. There's some that have 5 and some that are just worth 1, a little gold nugget on them. So we'll just set those off to the side to talk about later. There are 6 different types of wares in the game, as illustrated on this card. There is silk, trinkets, salt, fruit, hides, and tea leaves. And then each one of these ware cards has 2 numbers in the bottom right corner that kind of represent it. The left number, in this case 10, that might be a little blurry, is how much it costs to buy these wares. And then this bottom right number, 18, is how much you can get if you can sell these wares. And so the game is, like I said, based off of buying and selling these different wares. So like I said, the game is a game for 2 players. There's the red player, I'm sorry, that's the wrong card. There's the red player and the green player. Each one of these cards has a little, it represents your marketplace. There's room for 6 different areas where you, or 6 wares that you can store in your marketplace for selling. I'm just going to represent the red player right now, and we'll assume the green player is played by somebody else. So in the game, you start out with 20 gold pieces, as I've laid out here, 3 5 pieces and then 5 1 pieces, and you are dealt from the stack 5 cards. So here's our draw pile, and I have a hand of 5 cards. There are, like I said, a few different types of cards. We already talked about the ware cards. This one and this one are both ware cards. This third card in my hand is a utility card. These are items, or these cards you can use over and over. You actually have room for 3 of them in your play area. You can stack them out and say that's a utility card that I'm using. There are animal cards that you actually use to attack your opponent to take advantage of them or take something from them. In the case of the hyena, this actually allows you to steal a card from them, and then you can give them a card back from your hand, basically trade a card with them. And then there are people cards. The people cards are used to help yourself. The animal cards, like I said, are to hurt your opponent, and the people cards are used to help yourself or defend yourself. So you are dealt a stack, or I mean a hand of 5 cards, and you have in your play area your marketplace, and your gold is sitting there. And the game is actually played using a very simple method of, you get 5 actions that you can do, and that's, you have 5 little action tokens here. So as you'll play, the first thing you have the option to do is to draw a card. So you draw your first card, and I look at it, and this is a utility card. It's the supplies, and quite frankly, I don't like this card. So when I draw it to begin with, my first action, I move the little token over, is I draw my first card. If I want to keep it, I can. If I don't like it, which I don't, I can choose to discard it. And then for my second action, I can draw another card as I choose. I actually want to keep this card. And when I decide to keep it, then I'm all done drawing. I can't draw any more cards. But I still have 3 unused actions that I can do over here, which I'm actually going to use my actions to play a few things. The first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take this where card here. It's got fruit, hide, and tea leaves on it. I'm going to pay the cost of 5, which you may or may not be able to read there. And I'm going to pay 5 to the bank. And I buy these wares from the stack, from the main supply. And I take them and I put them on my marketplace like so. So in my marketplace, I have these available. Okay, that was my third action. I bought that car. I bought those wares. On my fourth action, I might decide, hey, you know what I want to do? I want to play this utility card. So that's my fourth action. And then my fifth action, I'm actually going to attack my opponent with the hyena. Remember, I said this is the one that lets me take a card from their hand. And, you know, I look at their hand to take a card that I want, and then I can give them back. I have to give them back a card from my hand. So let's say I just happen to grab from my opponent this card right here. Ooh, this is actually a really good draw. We'll talk about this in a minute. So I'll place that in my hand and say, I don't really care much for this Rainmaker. I'm going to give that back to my opponent. So my opponent has that card in their hand now. And I've used all 5 of my actions, so I'm all done. The next player takes their turn, basically does the exact same thing. On my next turn, I look at my hand and I say, okay, I will draw a card and I'll keep it. Why not? So that's my first action. Okay. You are also given the option, if you don't want to draw any cards, you don't have to. So you can just leave it and just go straight to playing your cards or playing what you have down on the board. So like I said, this card that I stole from my opponent is actually very handy. It gives me 3 more slots that I can use in my marketplace. So right down here there's a cost. It says 6/3. So the first time anybody in the game, whether myself or my opponent, plays this card, they have to pay 6 gold to do so. So I will pay that 6 gold. And now I have room for 3 more in my marketplace. That's quite handy because the rule with your main marketplace is if you fill up that 6th spot, you have to pay 2 gold. And if you can avoid the cost of doing that, that's great. And you can do that by saying, instead of filling up the 6th position here, I'm going to ship it over here into this table. It just allows you to save yourself a little bit of extra gold. And then for my second action, I'm actually going to play this where card. It costs 4, and I'm going to buy 2 more tea leaves and a silk. And instead of paying the fee 2 to put in my last spot, I'm going to place it on this first spot on my other table. And now what comes really handy at this point is then I can say, I look at my cards in my hand and I say, I have a silk, a hide, and a tea leaf in my main supply here. So I can actually take this card as my third action and play it and say, I'm actually going to sell these wares for the cost of, or for the price of 12. So I pay that, and I take these wares that are according to the card I just sold off my tables. They go back to the supply, and I take 12 gold. Here's 10, 11, and assume a 12. Either way, since I end my turn with still 2 turns unused, I actually get a bonus of 1 gold piece that I can add to my supply. And here's that 12th in case anybody's keeping track. and then I can say that's my opponent's turn. The game continues on in this fashion until one player has earned 60 gold. And at that point, the other player has one last turn to try and match or beat them and get 60 gold as well. So the game is actually quite simple, and it's easy to learn and fun to play, and it doesn't take too much concentration. And I just find that it's actually quite a bit of fun for 2 players. And it comes in has a nice little carrying case, so you can put your cards in these containers here, and a little tray for putting your money and your markers and your extra wares. So you can put them all in and keep them nice and organized. The game usually runs about $16 or so on Amazon, and it's just quite a bit of fun. So if it looks interesting, pick it up, try it out.